A very good day to everybody. The aim of this video is to have a very brief outlook at the application and usage of the instant replay system, or in short, the IRS, as well as the application of the head coaches challenge. Two items that are going to be introduced in the next couple of weeks in the local scenario, and the main aim of this video is to explain how the IRS could be used and applied in the games, as well as how the head coaches challenge will be operated in the games. So to kickstart this explanation, let's use a PowerPoint presentation that should make it much more easier for you to understand. My advice to the coaches especially is to take heed and pay attention also to the first part of the video, which will be specifically on the application and the use of the IRS by the referees, because the same situations are also going to be under the application of the head coaches challenge that will be explained in some more detail in the last part of this video. So let's start this explanation of the use of the instant replay system, or IRS in short. This system, the IRS, is basically a system whereby the referees could review the decisions they took in different parts of the game by utilizing some approved video technology. Therefore, the main aim is to verify the decisions taken by the referees, obviously through the help of technology. So the initial points that could be stressed as regards the usage of the IRS, very important points, although they might look and seem logical, is basically that the use of the instant replay system should be limited only, to the permitted cases, as highlighted also in the rules of the game, and the use of the IRS should be avoided in all the remaining cases. These permitted cases are going to be explained briefly in the next couple of minutes. The main aim of the IRS, as outlined clearly on the screen, is that through the use of the instant replay system, the referees will take a better, correct, and fair decisions, also giving more trust and respect to the same decisions taken by the referees. Very quickly, as regards IRS, one must note that it is the responsibility of the crew chief or the main referee to decide whether a play is going to be reviewed or not. Of course, for there to be a review, there must be an initial decision taken by the referees, which means that if there is no call, obviously that play cannot be reviewed, but only if there is a decision taken by the referees could then there be a review. Obviously, if then the referees decide to go to the IRS before actually going to the video technology apparatus, the referees should gather all the information that they can about that particular situation, either by crewing up on the court and discussing between themselves on the court, but also getting information from other personnel, such as the table officials, okay, so that they get all the information prior to going to review the play. And then who will go to review the play? It is always the crew chief, accompanied by another referee, especially if the other referee has made the decision. Therefore, it will always be two referees that will go to review any particular play on the IRS. During the review, it is important to note that only the referees that are reviewing the play will be seeing the apparatus. No other persons should be next to them, and we're still suggesting anything to them, especially no bench personnel from the team benches should be there reviewing the play with the referees. The review is solely for the referees, the crew chief and his colleague or her colleague who are reviewing the play. If there was a request for a timeout or a substitution ahead of the review, it is important to point out that this timeout and or substitution will be put on hold until the review is ended, because then after the review, the coach could also decide to withdraw any request for timeout or any request for substitution after a particular review. Of course, after that there is a review, the referee who has made the call must then go back on the court and report to the table officials the outcome of the review, whether to stay with the decision or to change the eventual decision. One point that must be stressed is that the initial decision of a referee can only be corrected if the video review shows clear and conclusive evidence that that play needs to be corrected. An important point that must be stressed out and understood by all. Now, let's turn our attention to which plays could be reviewed or the permitted cases in the rules of the game. Starting off with plays that could be reviewed at any time in the game. Therefore, at any time in the game, the referees could review plays to check whether a particular shot has been made from the 3-point area or the 2-point zone. Therefore, at any time in the game, the referees could even stop the game immediately to review whether a successful basket counts as 2 or 3 points. Also, the referees at any time during the game could also review a play to check whether a foul was committed on a shooter on a 3-point shot attempt or a 2-point shot attempt. Therefore, to decide whether the penalty, the free throw penalty, should be 2 shots or 3 shots, always depending on the status of the shooter that was fouled. Also, at any time during the game, the referees could review any play to check whether a foul could be upgraded, for example, to an unsportsmanlike foul or even a disqualifying foul, or even downgraded down to a personal foul from an unsportsmanlike foul, or even whether a foul could be considered as a technical foul. Therefore, the referees could review any play they feel during the game that could be upgraded or downgraded accordingly. As well, should the game clock or the 24-second clock have any malfunction or will not be working properly, the referees could review the play to check how much time to put either on the game clock or on the shot clock or even both accordingly. Additionally, at any time during the game, the referees could review plays to check and to make sure of who was actually fouled, therefore to identify the correct free throw shooter in those cases where the referees may not be totally certain as who has to shoot a particular set of free throws. And in the case of fighting or any acts of violence during any time of the game, the referees could stop the game immediately and review the play to see who was involved in the fighting incident or any acts of violence, so that the referees could take a clear decision in the situations of fighting or acts of violence. Therefore, at any time during the game, As you could see in front of you on the slides, we've got these situations that could be reviewed by the referees. Now turning to situations that could be reviewed only by the referees in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, therefore the last 2 minutes of the regular game time or the last 2 minutes of any eventual overtime. In this juncture of the game, therefore the last 2 minutes of the regular game time or the 2 minutes of any overtime period, apart from the cases that we spoke earlier that could be reviewed at any time during the game, in this period, these last 2 minutes, the referees could also review plays to check whether the shot for a basket was released before the 24-second signal has sounded. Therefore, there was an attempt for goal, the shot clock has sounded, the referees could review the play to make sure that the shot was released by the shooter before the 24-second signal sounded. Also, in the last 2 minutes of the game, the referees could review the play, could also review the play to check whether if there was a foul away from a shooting situation. Therefore, we're talking about instances where somebody is shooting, for example, on the right-hand side of the court, but there is a foul on the other side of the court. The referees could review the play to check whether this particular foul away from the shooter was committed, for example, before the game clock expired, therefore the end of the game buzzer was sounded, whether it was before the 24-second signal sounded, and whether also if it is a foul committed by a teammate of the actual shooter, whether the shooter has released the shot from the ball from his hands before this teammate has committed the foul. In these situations, the referees could use the IRS to determine the correctness of the action. Therefore, as you could see there on the slide, and also in the last 2 minutes of the game or any overtime, if the referees have called any basket interference or goaltending violation, the referees could also stop the game to check whether this goaltending call or basket interference call was called correctly. This happens only in the last 2 minutes of the game, and obviously the referees have called the violation. If the referees do not call any goaltending or basket interference, there cannot be any instant replay system usage because you cannot review something that was not called. Also, in the last 2 minutes of the game and any overtime, if the ball had to go out of bounds and the referees are uncertain as who last touched the ball, in these last 2 minutes, the referees could make use of the instant replay system to determine who last touched the ball and therefore who is entitled to the next out of bounds. Therefore, in the last 2 minutes of the game or any overtime, we've got now also these situations that could be reviewed by the referees. Lastly, at the end of any quarter or the game or any overtime, the referees could use the IRS to check whether a shot for a basket was released before the game clock signal has sounded. Therefore, we are at the end of the quarter or the end of the fourth quarter, which is the game or any overtime. We've got a shooter that is shooting the ball, is releasing the ball very close to the buzzer. There is a basket, and the referees, before deciding whether the basket counts or not, could use the IRS to check whether the ball was released from the hands before the actual clock sounded. Also, if there is a foul very close to the end of the quarter or the game, the referees could use the instant replay system to check firstly that the foul was committed within the game and not after the end of the quarter or the game. And should the foul have been committed before the end of the quarter or the game, the referees then will need to decide also how much time to put back on the clock. We're not talking about foul, but we're talking about also the situations that you could see on the slide: an out of bounds violation, a shot clock violation, an 8-second violation, and obviously the foul that I have explained a couple of seconds ago. Therefore, in all these situations, at the end of the quarter or the game, the referees could use the IRS to determine whether these were committed after the game or within the game. And if within the game, how much time then to place back on the game clock. Obviously, then, the particular time left on the game clock needs to be played until then we go to the interval of play. As seen also on the slide, the interval of play shall not start until the IRS decision is communicated, and if there is any additional playing time, this playing time needs to be completed, and then we have the interval between quarters, halftime, or whatever. Therefore, at the end of the quarter or overtime, we've got these situations explained a few minutes ago that could be used for review by the referees through the instant replay system. Now we're going to turn our attention to the protocol that is going to be used by the referees in the case of the usage of the instant replay system, because there is a particular protocol that must be followed by the referees in these cases. As you could see there on the slide, we've got a number of steps that will determine the usage of the instant replay system, starting from step 1, whereby there must be an initial decision taken by the referee in any particular play. Then after this decision, the referee, the calling referee, or the group of referees will come together to discuss that particular play and will decide whether or not to use the instant replay system. Should it be the case that the referees want to use the instant replay system, the crew chief will make the conventional IRS signal, the conventional IRS signal to show everybody that the referees are going to review the play. But before actually going to the video apparatus to review the play, the referees, if needed, will gather more information, for example, from the table of officials to have more information about that particular play. And then the referees will go to alone, as I said before, the two referees will go alone, always two referees will go to review. They will review the play and will decide whether to stay with the decision, or else if the video review shows clear and conclusive evidence that the action can be corrected, there will be a correction of the decision. And obviously, as explained earlier in this video, the calling referee will go back on court to report back about the outcome of the review. Therefore, as explained, there must first be an initial decision taken by the referees, and then the referees will meet up together. As you could see on the right-hand side here, there's first an initial decision taken by the referee. The referees then will meet up to decide whether to go to the instant replay system usage or not. Therefore, here we've got the referees meeting up and deciding whether to stay with the decision, or else, as you could see here, the crew chief makes the conventional IRS signal to show everybody that the referees have decided to go to use the IRS. That is the signal, again, okay, used by the referees to determine the IRF. The referee makes a sort of signal in a circular motion showing the use of the IRS for that particular play. And as explained before, the crew chief together with the referee, especially if there's another referee who has made the decision, will go to check the IRS to review the situation. Then, together, both referees, nobody else, the two referees then will see the play and will decide accordingly, okay, will decide accordingly together on the outcome of the play. As mentioned there, IRS situations can only be reviewed by the referee's team. For example, if umpire 1 or umpire 2 has made the call, the crew chief together with the umpire who has made the call will go to review the play. If it is the crew chief himself or herself that has made the call, the crew chief will go to review the call and call over one of the other two umpires. Because this could also be a possibility, and it's important to point out, should the two referees reviewing the play disagree between them on the outcome of the review, it is always the crew chief, as listed also in the rules, that will take the final decision. Therefore, if there is no agreement, should not be the case and hopefully not, but should there be no agreement between the referees, it is the crew chief that will make the final decision. Definitely, things that should be avoided, as shown here on the slide. One referee alone should never go to the IRS. It is always two referees that go to review the plays, not one referee. And nobody else but the referees, no players, no coaches, no team bench members, not even table officials. They should not stand up and go with the referees to review the play. It is only the referees that should go next to the video operators to review the particular play. And obviously, if we are reviewing the play, the referees are advised to use all the technological possibilities, but not use only zoom or slow motion, but also see the review in normal play. Obviously, they can use zoom, they could use slow motion, but not only them, they should also analyze the play in normal play. And as you could see on the right-hand side of the screen, something that is not acceptable is that the referees are going to review the play, and already we've got team bench members and coaches going to review the play on the screen. This should be avoided at all costs. Of course, as we explained before, after the review is made and after there is a final decision, there must be a reporting back to the scorers table on the outcome of the play, either that we are staying with the play or else we are correcting the play. Obviously, a reminder that the play could be corrected if the video review shows clear and conclusive evidence that this play should be corrected. And also, one must remember that after the signing of the score sheet at the end of the game, the IRS can no longer be used. For example, there is some situation near the end of the game, the referees have signed the score sheet, and then suddenly, okay, there are some requests for the IRS review that is out of context now because the referees have already signed the score sheet. Here we've got some examples, starting off a play, action number 1, where the shot is taken near the 3-point line. The referees are uncertain as whether the shot is a 2-point shot or a 3-point shot. In step 2, as you could see, the referee is making the conventional IRS signal. They go to review the play and then will decide whether the basket is a 2-point shot or valid for 3 points. As you could see, this is an example of the usage of the IRS review in this particular situation. Another example here, we've got a personal foul that could be analyzed, also a possibility of a unsportsmanlike foul. A decision is taken by the referee, a personal foul or an unsportsmanlike foul. The referees come together, discuss, decide to go to the IRS. Two referees go to the IRS to check the particular play, and then will decide accordingly whether to upgrade a personal foul to an unsportsmanlike foul, or to downgrade an unsportsmanlike foul to a personal foul, or even to upgrade it to a disqualifying foul, or to maintain the initial decision. That is the usage of the IRS in this particular play. Here we've got something valid only in the last 2 minutes of the game, where the referees have called some goaltending or basket interference. There is a decision. I repeat, there is a call made by the referees. Referees can then stop the play to review, to check whether that call was correct or not, therefore whether to give the basket valid to the team or even then to cancel that particular basket, depending on the video review. Obviously, if there is no violation, therefore the referees have made a call, but the review shows that everything was legal, for example, from the defensive team, there is no violation, and the game will resume through the use of a jump ball situation. Therefore, in our case, using the arrow, the possession arrow, to determine who will get the next ball out of bounds.
With the turnover, trying to force the issue. Jones gets the ball. Time winding down. Is it good? It is. I think it was just on time. Obviously, the refs, they know what they're doing.
Made field goal. The play's on a review.
Should have gone with their initial assumption because they were correct, but they want to make sure that they...
The ruling on the court is confirmed. Made basket.
The video instant replay to see if the shot is within the time.
So it's conclusive, no baskets.
No basket.
Now we're going to see a small example on the usage of the instant replay system. Let's look at this video and analyze it accordingly. We've got the action here. The referee that's going to take a decision is circled in yellow. The referee makes a call, as you could see here. Therefore, the referee is showing the initial decision, which was a call for a personal foul, makes the signal, and then uses the IRS convention signal, the circling, to show everybody that the referees are going to analyze, to review the play. The crew chief here goes with the referee that has called the particular foul to review the play. And this video is supplied by FIBA for educational purposes. The referees go next to the IRS system. As you could see, crew chief and minimum 1 umpire.
I changed to C1. Yeah, change it. Conclusive. Upgrade. Shooter, C1, okay? Number 55 is the shooter. Yeah, 55 shooter. Let's go.
The referees here have analyzed the play and they have agreed to upgrade the foul to an unsportsmanlike foul. And as you could see, the referee that has called the initial decision goes to show the outcome of the review, showing the upgrade now to the unsportsmanlike foul.
Stay with the initial decision. Yeah. Do.
So after analyzing the usage of the instant replay system by the referees, now the attention will turn towards the head coach's challenge. I had suggested to coaches to take note and pay attention to all the plays mentioned as permitted cases for the usage of the instant replay system by the referees, because the same plays could also be applied under the head coach's challenge, but under a particular criteria, which I will be explaining soon. Therefore, now let's analyze the use and how it will be applied, the use of the head coach's challenge. In this first slide, we are seeing, and we could read that wherever there is the use of the instant replay system, there now, in even the local scenario, we will be applying and making use of the possibility of the head coach's challenge, whereby the head coach of a team may request a head coach's challenge. The signal of the head coach's challenge, as you could see, is a rectangular shape. The coach making a rectangular shape in the form of a display of a TV screen. That is the signal showing the referees that the coach would like to challenge a particular play. Therefore, the head coach will ask the nearest referee to verify the decision taken on the court by using the conventional head coach's challenge signal, which is displayed there on the screen. How many challenges could a head coach have? The head coach can make use of one challenge in a game, even if the challenge is successful, which means that the head coach challenges a play and sort of wins the play because he may have argued against a decision and the review shows that he was correct. Even in that case, that does not mean that if the head coach wins a challenge, he will be entitled to another challenge. No, the head coach is entitled to one challenge per game. If the referee then, and the referee will accept the request for the head coach's challenge, the referee then will signal to the table, making the screen, the rectangular screen signal, which shows everybody that the game is going to be stopped in order for a head coach's challenge. For which cases can the coach ask for a challenge? The coach can challenge any decision, any play that was explained earlier in this video in the usage of the IRS. But obviously those that were very attentive know that in the case of referees, the plays were divided into three different categories: plays that could be reviewed at any time during the game, plays that could be reviewed in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter and the overtime, and plays that could be reviewed only at the end of the quarter or the end of the game. But in the case of a head coach challenge, all those cases, notwithstanding what minute it is, it could be also the first second of the game, all those plays could be challenged by the coach at any time during the game. Therefore, as you could see on the slide, only the game situations explained in the IRS video earlier may be challenged. However, the time restrictions do not apply. Therefore, there are no time restrictions, okay? The head coach could challenge any play at any time during the game. As mentioned also in the last sentence, the head coach's challenge may be requested at any time in the game because there are no time restrictions, okay, in this case. And as I explained before, in order to make a challenge, the head coach will ask the nearest referee for the challenge, making the conventional signal and saying also clearly challenge. And once the coach has requested the challenge and made the conventional signal, then that decision cannot be reversed back, which means that if the coach in the spur of the moment, emotional, asks for the challenge to the referee, but then a few seconds later decides not to, it is too late, because once the referee has called for the challenge, because the coach has called for the challenge, that action is final and irreversible. And then the protocol is similar to the IRS, whereby the referees, after reporting to the table that they are going to review the play because of the head coach's challenge, again, two referees go to review the play, nobody else, and there's the same protocol as before, gathering information before going to the reviewing the play, and then deciding accordingly on the play or not if the video replay shows clear and conclusive evidence that a particular decision or play was called incorrectly by the referees. As you could see here, if the review provides the challenge decision in favor of the requested team, the decision will be overturned, or vice versa. After the challenge, the game will then be resumed as after an review similar also to the IRS review mentioned earlier in the video. Points to note for coaches: there is no need to call a timeout to request a challenge. Therefore, the coach could request a challenge during the game. There is no need to request a timeout. And if the coach requests a challenge, but the review states that the challenge is unsuccessful, there is no penalty for that particular coach. And similarly, if the coach's challenge is successful, the coach will not get an extra challenge to be used later in the game. Why? Because there is only one challenge per coach to be used at any time during the game. With this, I have come to the end of this explanation of both the usage of the instant replay system as well as the application of the head coach's challenge. I hope that you found this video and explanation fruitful, and now you have more insight on the use of the IRS and how the head coach's challenge will be operated in the coming weeks during our games. Thank you for your attention, and let's continue loving this game.